Everybody to Aura TV. Today we're talking about DNA reprogramming. We're talking about chakras in that I'm reading the chakras because they represent the inner workings or the way we process energy as a group. That means the heart area, the chest, the kidneys, the liver, how we process energy will actually give us a good indication of what's going on in the organs, what's going on in the body. But also it's a little bit of a window into past experiences, which of course is the DNA the DNA connection. So past experiences are written, if you like, as a imprint. So if we start with, we've got a DNA encoding. That is, you start with a code which suggests that you're human. Because you have 50% input from your father and from your mother, then that's 50% each, by the way. Then there's a representation of both sides of your family history, as well as what kind of upbringing you had physically, what your environment was like, how you ate. There's a whole pile of information that's passed on that is not necessarily physiological, and so we've got the two elements at play in there. Hi, Michelle, welcome to the show. We also need to look at exactly what reprogramming is, because it's something that I do. There's a series of hypnotherapies that an individual can do, and the difference between DNA reprogramming and DNA work, as it were, to say, being hypnotized to get rid of anxiety or depression, the difference is that there's no result orientation. In other words, it's a process. So you'd have the hypnotherapies as a means to get to undo something and then reestablish a firm base and foundation and then do a restructure to go forward with. The whole point is the process. So we're not hypnotizing to get rid of specifics within your life because they are too complex for a start, and they may be involving eating, the way one eats. They may involve the way we envision our aging or our health as we go forward at different stages and ages. We are taking all of this information on board from the womb all the way through to our present and to our future. Some of those beliefs that are started within the womb will actually be determining your death, in actual fact, or your longevity. And there's just some fascinating facts around DNA and around cells. And it's been quite a long time now that they've known for sure that the influences that we're subject to with our DNA are actually ongoing. They are evolutionary through our lives. From a point when I was a bit younger, they believed DNA was sacrosanct. That means what you started with and were born with, you died with, and they have since discovered through many methods. And one of the first things that alerted, I think, scientists was kind of obvious. It's like the anecdotal evidence for sugar. You can refute it all you like, but every parent out there knows the truth of it. And therefore, it makes science a mockery to not acknowledge it and look at it. The reality was all of these people were migrating to different countries and changing their diets, which they thought their body shapes were genetic. So there was this idea that an Asian had a genetically tiny little body, but with a couple of generations of changing diet and moving into a different space, they find that the body shape, the size, everything is changing. Now, this isn't new, but it's become very, very much pronounced in more recent years, where maybe once upon a time migrants would still maintain their favoured diet, but then they've moved into more modern society, and now migrants are more inclined to try the diets of the people that the country they've migrated to. You see this in reverse as well. So we need to think about little things like that. We've got a study out there, we've got so many, it's just not even funny, that proves that how we feel alters our aging process. It alters our physiological appearance as well as our performance. And this is phenomenal. Deepak Chopra wrote a book, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, a number of years back, and that book was fascinating. They had a study of older people, and they'd taken two groups. They took one group, put them into a hotel, looked after them, fed them well, gave them all their needs, massages, all the rest of it. The second group, they took them and they put them in a hotel, and they blocked them off from the world. They only showed them movies and news items and TV from the 50s, from when they were younger. and this, because this would be about 20 years ago maybe that they did this, and they fed them foods and diet, not necessarily health diet. They fed them the types of foods that they would have eaten back at that age group. Everything around them, the magazines, everything that surrounded them, they were cocooned in a bit of a time warp. Now, at the outset, they did physical age testing. That's breath testing, exercise, bikes, walking, weights, to determine what their physical age was. Now, the first group that went into the hotel and got looked after had a physiological age reduction. In other words, after, I think it was 3 weeks, only 21 days, their performance improved. I could be wrong about that period of time, but the book is Deepak Chopra's Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And their performance had improved to a point that they determined that they physiologically reduced their age by about 10 years on average. The second group that they put in this little time warp, they actually reduced their age, physiological age, their ability to lift weights, walk, breathe, by 25 years average through the whole group, which is phenomenal. So they proved that just by looking after somebody and showing you care and taking care of them can improve their physical health. But when you actually put them into a scape where they are feeling and reminded of their youth, then they will actually reduce that even more. They will have health improvements. Over a period of time, too, I do recall that they had improvements that were health-oriented over a longer period of time. So it's certainly interesting to look at, and it's certainly something to take on board. Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Candace Pert, I quote them quite a bit. She wrote The Molecules of Emotion, and Dr. Candace Pert was the discoverer of endorphins. We're not talking a lightweight research scientist here. We're talking one of the big girls who has been involved in the sciences of the biology of the body, molecular sciences for a very long time. With all of the discoveries that she had that put her name out there, if you like, she was also involved with a lot of the people doing these other kind of discoveries. So discovering endorphins changed everything we believed about how the cell worked, about what it accepted, what it didn't, and of course the biggest outflow of her research, her science, was the understanding of addictions. You know, how can we get addicted to anything? And of course endorphins and that discovery actually showed her the way about the unlocking and the locking of the cell, how it allows something to enter in, and what actually these drugs are doing, what they're mimicking, what they're trying to copy, even if it's not functional in the long term, is physiological. It's our biological systems, it's our biological chemicals that they're all trying to mimic, they're all trying to imitate. And so science, medical, whichever way you're going, illicit drugs, they're all trying to mimic something that's already in your body, that's already pre-existing for financial gain. Sometimes I would say maybe the motivation is to heal, but I've got quite cynical in that in more recent years when I hear of what is known and what is offered, and the big gap between what is known and what is offered, and the willingness to compromise human health to sell a product is always going to shock me. I hope it always shocks me. And so we've got a study that already shows happiness can improve health, not just putting somebody in a position where they can believe that they live at a time when they were younger. They're reminding their body of its youth, and therefore it becomes younger. But actually there are studies that show that happy people have stronger immune systems, they get sick less, they recover better. And those studies go on to say that married couples or people that are in relationships are happier on average and live longer than people who are not. So it's an interesting area, although I would want to quantify the age thing by, are we talking about people that die not long after their partner dies? Is that part of that? You might need to type to Joe if you don't mind, to tell him to refresh, because yes, the show has started, Joe. Now, let's have a little look at DNA facts. Okay, 99.9% of all the DNA in all humanity is the same, and it's that 0.9 millionth that is different that creates individuality. Okay, it creates individuality. That means that it doesn't matter where somebody is on this planet, 99.9% is exactly the same as everybody else, regardless of color, race, size, sex. We're there. You gain 50% from each parent, as I said before. But according to biologists, how you inherit similarities and differences are not always the same. So this is where the subjectiveness or the subjective quality of DNA information exchange comes in, because you can have two parents and you can have 6 children, and they can exchange or kick in or kick out different similarities and differences to what the brother or the sister. And there's no real rhyme or reason for that if we're purely inheriting 50-50 off each parent. There's no reason why it shouldn't actually be the same. There's no evidence, in other words, to show if you how you inherit those similarities or differences. But it's so far to date it had been assumed that you look like a parent, you inherited that similarity. Now, in more modern times, they're suggesting that just by telling a baby or a child that it looks like its father can increase the potential of that child to look like its father. Very interesting play in here. That's the same where, of course, you can have a disease or a physiological appearance that is passed on. The curious thing here is that for well over 50 years it's been known that we don't actually inherit these at all. In other words, it's not present in your stem cell. Therefore, if it's not present in the original stem cell DNA, how does it become present by the time you're born? There is the next question. They've got the answer, but this is what's been going on for 50 years of my life, which is just about all of my life. They've been having these understandings. We're not talking about new knowledge. We're not talking about spiritual knowledge. There's a certain amount of spiritual knowledge which plays into intuitively a part of physiology, but actually doesn't pass enough of a head nod, in my opinion, to the actual physiology. The actual biology of humans is much more subtle than I think is given credit for. So we see a lot of 12-strand DNA in activations, and I kind of ignore them because it says they don't know physiology at all. And if you're going to say the word DNA, you better be talking physiology if you're talking to me. So there's 23 different types of, this is the helix. So we look at the helix, right, which is the 2 rows like a ladder, spinning, mostly going right-handed, by the way, mostly spinning to the right. So there are 23 different strands of those in the human body. That means that to say 12-strand activation, etc., doesn't kind of make a lot of sense. Now, if you want to get really technical, each helix is made up of 2 strands, and the strands are connected. And so essentially there are, if you want to be technical, 46 strands of DNA in the human body. Now, there are 4 different types of these strands, and that's your lot. So there's 4 different types, and then on top of that there is non-coded DNA, which they're still working out. So the non-coded DNA has stem cell is non-coded at that particular point outside of humanity, and then of course you've got cells that they're not too sure why, but they seem to have lost their coding, they seem to have lost their ability to be coded. We also have to allow for the reality that they maybe just can't read those yet. You know, maybe the coding that they've got is something that we don't know how to read. And we have science now saying when they don't know something like that, they go looking for it, which is very cool. Just for fun, we also have within our body bacterial DNA, viral DNA, and that's how you can get something like herpes that actually lives on and on and on. It starts to mimic the host DNA to a certain extent, so it can live within the host body rather than be evicted. So that's where you can get a virus that continues and evolves and grows. And of course you've got HIV as one of the more known and more lethal ones of those. But there are many potential different types of bacterial and viral DNA. Well, they call it bacterial DNA. There's DNA at the very center of the cell, which we're all pretty familiar with, right? And we all think of that one. But there's also mitochondrial DNA. Now, this is very important because it's the DNA that's in the mitochondria, which is the outer area of the cell, that seems to be, at the moment, they're looking at more responsible for evolution in health. That means they feel it could be responsible for cardiovascular disease and stuff along those lines. When you're talking about the word responsible, we get subjective. It's responsible or it's responded to our lifestyle choices, in which case it's evolved to a point where it's now not as successful as it could be in keeping us healthy, keeping us on the play. We've got autosomal DNA, which carries information from our ancestry. That means, basically, if your grandmother or your grandfather or both of them lived in a time of famine, it's very likely that you, as a grandchild, would inherit some of those traits that cause you some issues or non-issues based on environment, based on pure survival. So we've got these levels of survival, and then we've got levels of life enhancement, and then we've got levels of reading and going as we do. The DNA doesn't do the reading. The membrane around the cell does the reading and gives the information to evolve to be able to survive better. If we think about all of these evolutions, all of these changes are purely and simply about survival, we'd be a lot happier. And then we can perhaps make our life choices based on enhancing our life rather than simply surviving it. I need to talk a little bit about Dr. Lars Olof Bygren. I think I've said that right, but I may not have, and it's very likely I didn't actually. He's the first one to really discover epigenetics. He's the one to really first discover that we evolve ourselves through life. Now, the very main area of conflict within this information over the years has been that it goes in direct contrast to a Darwinian theory of slow millennia-type evolution based on the environment and our need to survive within it. We are talking about much faster evolutions here that are not necessarily physiological but can be within a framework within your lifetime. So I'm going to just read a little bit of the research that I pulled out for you on Bygren. Hi there, everybody. He became fascinated with research showing that the conditions in the womb could affect your health, not only when you were a fetus, but well into adulthood. And this is in 1986 that the Lancet published the first of two groundbreaking papers showing that if a pregnant woman ate poorly, her child would be at significantly higher than average risk of cardiovascular disease as an adult. Really important stuff. And, for instance, his research showed that in ovircalyx, boys who enjoyed those rare overabundant winters, kids who went from normal eating to gluttony in a single season, produced sons and grandsons who lived shorter lives, far shorter lives. In the first paper, Bygren wrote about Norbotten, which was published in 2001. He showed that the grandsons of ovircalyx boys who had overeaten died an average of 6 years earlier than the grandsons of those who had endured a poor harvest. There is an indication in it that our bodies are set up to be lean, right? Their bodies are set up to be lean. Once Bygren and his team controlled for certain socioeconomic variations, the difference in longevity jumped to an astounding 32 years. So that means that those that ate less food over their lifetime, their grandchildren and their children lived 32 years longer on average than those who ate between starvation in winter and gluttony in summer, which is that on again, off again, binge eating style. Thinking of binge eating, anybody that's got the issue, think back to things like grandparents and great-grandparents living through very lean times through the war. You know, just an interesting throw out there. It affects their children and continues, they believe, to affect grandchildren as well because of this study. Later papers using different Norbotten cohorts also found significant drops in lifespan and discovered that they applied along the female line as well, meaning that the daughters and granddaughters of girls who had gone from normal to gluttonous diets also lived shorter lives. So to put it simply, the data suggested that a single winter of overeating as a youngster could initiate a biological chain of events that would lead one's grandchildren to die decades earlier than their peers did. That was the initial epigenetic information, the studies that were done. The answer lies beyond both nature and nurture. So Bygren's data, along with those of many other scientists working separately now over the past 20 to 30 years, have given birth to a new science called epigenetics. And at its most basic, epigenetics is the study of changes in gene activity that do not involve alterations to the genetic code, but still get passed down to at least one successive generation. These patterns of gene expression are governed by the cellular material, or the epigenome, that sits on top of the genome, just outside of it, hence the word epi, which means, by the way, above. So it's prior to, it is above your higher self, call it whatever you like. It is these epigenetic marks that tell your genes to switch on or off. So your genetic sequencing determines your physiological health, how long you're going to live, your propensity towards being able to heal yourself and recover, many, many factors. How you look when you age, whether you keep your teeth, whether you lose your teeth, all of these things are decided at the epigenetic level. The epigenetic level, of course, can speak loudly or whisper, but it is through the epigenetic marks that environmental factors like diet, stress, prenatal nutrition can make an imprint on genes that is passed from one generation to the next. Therefore, the cycle is continued until somebody stops it, whether they stop it through a deliberate idea or their own extreme life situation. Just as an example, if a person goes through a near-death experience in a car accident, they may change their entire life and therefore move on and create something different that they pass on to their children, including perhaps a deep-rooted fear or anxiety that is unexplainable. In essence, DNA reprogramming is about influencing the epigenome by introducing a new base standard rather than being about grabbing a strand and rewiring it. So due to the constant evolution and the inherent quality of sharing a base experience, ending cycles can affect generations. And this is absolutely enormous. So one of the things that I do with the reprogramming is there are 5 hypnotherapies which are going to be made available online for download if you don't want to do them personally. But one of the major things about them is to address the womb experience, so that you're halting it in your tracks, okay, for yourself. If you've already had children past childbearing age, then we have another thing that goes on, which is where we share information from human to human. So there's a slight change in anybody that meets somebody and exchanges information energetically with somebody who has created a change within themselves. That can be, there's a word for it in medical terms, they call it spontaneous evolution. So if you have a person who has spontaneously, for example, built some kind of defense mechanism against the HIV virus, then other people will actually, over a period of time, be discovered to have this in their genomes, in their genetic structure, even though they're not related to that person. And it's one of those little mysteries as to how that information gets around. So we share information, and that includes antibodies, that includes defense mechanisms without necessarily having everybody exposed to something. A person who is exposed to something without a defense mechanism that doesn't get sick has already got a defense mechanism. The question becomes, where did they get it from? It should be impossible, but it isn't. So in some level, through genetic information sharing that is body to body, there is some level of their system taking up a stance of defense that's accurate and working without having to be exposed, so that once they are exposed, they're already in a position to deal with that. From an attitude, life point of view, as your DNA reprogramming is, it's not about the encoding, which is your humanness, and it's not about what your skill sets are, your ability to neurolink so that you can walk, you can talk, you can function, you can be cohesive. It's about the word imprinting more than anything, and I'm trying not to be pedantic, but it's important to have, like, this is where that is. Encoding is that we leave that there. Imprinting is something that comes later, and with that imprinting, we can take on a behavior of a parent based on how they've treated us or how they treat the world. So we've got 2 levels of that. There's how you're treated, your personal experience, and then there's how they treat the world, which you're taking on through the womb, which you're also taking on through their attitudes, their beliefs, their fear, their anxiety. So in other words, if you've got a parent who had a tendency to be anxious or depressed, you are predisposed to being anxious or depressed in life. When you've been adopted out, you have that from your parent, your natural parent. The fact that they're no longer there is a little irrelevant. You're still going to take some of that into your next stage, and things get layered up or they get added to in different ways. So you end up in a position where you can be quite mixed up and not actually be able to identify anything. You can work cognitive psychotherapy all you like, but if you don't have a cognitive understanding of the origin of what's going on for you, if there is no physiological reason, if there's no life experience that created that particular state for you, then it's virtually impossible. You go into what I call, or what everybody calls, I guess, your self-sabotage. You go into inner conflict. I don't believe in self-sabotage, so we'll be clear. I believe that we don't necessarily understand ourselves very well, and then what we know, our intellect and who we are essentially as a person, is trying to come into play, but it's battling this imprinting. All right, this imprinting will always win. It'll always win. There's that person who's got their hand in the cookie jar and saying, "I'm not hungry, I'm full," and even so their hand is still putting it into their mouth. There may have been severe food restrictions in their grandparents' childhood. Just a thought. it's not always going to be the answer that you think. So the hypnosis and the trance therapies for DNA reprogramming are different from core healing for that reason. Core healing leads a person's got a known life situation. That is, they've been treated roughly, they've been treated badly, things have happened. We've got personality issues. You've got a parent who may have later on become alcoholic after you were born. Any amount of things that could have gone on, but there's a tendency to know what the origins are, so there's the core healing. When you don't know what the origins are and you spend a lot of time, effort, money, I was talking to a lady just last night who had been 9 years, I've talked to many people through this, 9 years trying to heal something and still in the same position, and it's not working. And whether you like it or not, it's not working. So if you're continuing to do something that's not working, it's time to start looking a little bit deeper and to see if there's a way of working a process through. So I would keep away from anybody who says they're doing a 12-strand activation, because that's wrong to start with. That means whatever they're working with, it isn't your body. So think about that a little bit. Secondly, think about what DNA work actually means. It's body work. DNA is physical. It's in your body. Your body remembers absolutely everything. Every experience you've ever had, everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever touched, smelled, it remembers everything. That's its job. It remembers everything. So this is getting written over and over and over in a constant. It was very recently, I think, they worked out that one piece of DNA they artificially wrote. I did have the names of the two men that did this. It was at Harvard. It was at Harvard University, and they wrote. I can't even remember what it was called, because it was something like a 1,000 terabytes of information onto what would be the same size piece of DNA. It's a massive amount of information that it's capable of. It's a massive amount of information it's capable of using, evolving. It's just a fascinating, purely wonderful thing. When we look at the chakras, you're seeing how these are working. How is this inner energy working? The other thing about the mitochondria DNA, which is interesting, is it's considered the energy DNA. In other words, it's dispensing energy. These are the little light pops that you see of your DNA, of your cells as they're working. There's energy exchange. There's information put out there. So you're accepting information, you're sending it out. It was some years back they acknowledged and realized that every time you eat food, if you eat broccoli, for example, or spinach, the cells within that exchange information with your body. To process light better, we need to eat photonic food. That means we need to eat green food. So think about that just a little bit. We've got all of this exchange of information, constant and ongoing. It comes into our bodies, it goes out of our bodies. Some of it's a straight energetic exchange. As they say, you can feel somebody's heartbeat at 20 feet or 20 paces, 20 feet. They're that close to you. So for all of the people around you, you're feeling their heartbeats. The fact that you're not acknowledging that doesn't matter. I think that's the herd animal in us. If we don't feel somebody's heart starting to race, we don't get some kind of inkling or warning, intuition, instinct, call it whatever you like. I don't see intuition as anything beyond instinct, and it is to save your life. Initially, it is so you have an awareness of what goes on around you, even if you're not conscious of what that awareness is. You're in some kind of position ready to take evasive action to do what it is you need to do to stay alive and healthy. All right, so that's that. So when we move back into the chakras, I see the chakras through the body. There's quite a few, 144 to 148. That's hotly debated. According to Sanskrit, I do take note of them since they are the original writers, explainers, systems of chakra, yoga, energy work, aura, pranic healing. It isn't an Asian-based or Dr. Usui-based understanding at all. It is an Indian-based, thousands of years of knowledge through Ayurvedic medicine brought forward on the energy system and the body system working together for healing. It's working together. So kind of an interesting thing. While they maintain a herbal stance in the health area, they also maintain an energetic one, and they read and diagnose energetically, which is what I do. Not because I practice Ayurvedic medicine, because I don't, or prana, so just so we're clear, but it makes no sense to me to divorce the two things and pretend or even intimate that they're separate. You cannot have a healing on any level without including the body, and all of your information is pretty much going to come via the body. No matter how you receive it, it's coming via that person's body. When it comes to a chakra, and I'm looking at a chakra, I work never with less than 12, and very often with as many as 36, depending on the individual, and not necessarily all at the same time, but yes, that's what you're looking at. The energy runs differently in different spaces and different parts with different organs. The amount of frequencies within the human body alone is phenomenal. Imagine a super database. Imagine, what was it they're talking about? Strands of DNA, they have coilings. They're called supercoiled because they are so interconnected. They are so long and so much information carried on them. They're sort of like a wire. Imagine a teeny tiny wire that if put end on end, they say will stretch out hundreds of thousands of miles. Kind of a phenomenal figure that's almost mind-boggling. And so they have these coils. It's very interesting. I might post this later. Somebody might need to remind me. When you look at the pictures of them, there's these figure eights in there, there's these little flowers in there, there's all of these different configurations of supercoiling. They're not all coiled the same, they don't all move the same way, and we've got these different types of DNA as well. All of this is at play, and what we're after really is making that as whole and complete as possible. So when everything's running a nice energy and everything's working the way it should do, you get a nice clean look at a chakra, but inside that you can see what's going on for the person, parts of their history. It's in the nature of the beast, it's in the nature of my job to go finding things that are wrong. If you're coming to me for anything, if you're going to any energy therapist for anything, any reader, essentially you're intrinsically stating that something's not quite right. People that are really happy, they're comfortable with where they are, they feel physically fine, tend not to be running around asking people like me questions. And so think about that too, that you may, it's not that it's, no, Jennifer, 7 chakras, 144 to 148, and I personally see anywhere upwards, 36 to 40 odd, and then some. It depends. Now and again I see other ones that just individual on occasion. It's crazy to ignore the full gamut. This is thousands of year old information. It's sort of like, you've got this area of you've got all of these stones written with records, and in Egypt and the Akkadian texts, and they've got pictures of the 9 planets and the sun, and they've got pictures of the orbits, and modern science just totally ignored that. Totally ignored it. In the 1960s they discovered Pluto and went, oh, that's right actually. Prior to that they just assumed they were wrong. It's called arrogance, and not informing yourself correctly because something is old doesn't mean it's incorrect. And if it is more complete than what a person is selling now, today, or telling you or whatever, then it's their information. That person has not gone and learned their craft very well, and therefore how can they be of benefit to anybody? Yes, I can see chakras remotely. I'm going to do chakra readings today. Aren't you on my list, Cindy? That's how I'm doing them. There's no such thing as remote, so I'm going to explain that as well. Light travels. Somebody over here, Miss Debbie's going to go, oh, roll the eyes. We've been just told this the other day. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. Light emits from your cells, from the center of your cell. It emits as groups of light, if you like. It emits as, depending on what level I'm looking at, I can look at just aura, which is generally personality based, where you're at right now, what you're thinking. You can, in the aura, see areas that aren't functioning too well. As soon as I see that, I'm going to dive in. If I'm doing a proper reading, if I'm doing a proper diagnosis, I should say, I'll dive in a little bit closer and see what organs at play, what are the emotions going on there. In session, I'll go through the whole body in that way and move back through an energy trail. For me, it's going deeper and deeper all the time. I know every time it's going to go to the cellular level. It's never going to go anywhere else. That's the only place for it to go. You are not your muscles, your teeth, your skin. You are cells that you see as muscles, teeth, and skin. Does that help at all? So I hope so. So anyway, on to the readings. I've got quite a few. I've been running my last few shows a little bit extra time, so I won't be doing that. I'll be keeping my time to the 1 hour. That's quite enough. So if, perchance, I do miss you out, I will just take you through to next week's show. Alrighty, so for those that are in the end, if I do miss you out, I will take you through to next week's show. So we're starting with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, the very first thing I see above your shoulder on the right-hand side, just into the core of your neck. We've got 2 chakras here, a masculine and feminine. The right side's what we call a masculine, and the left is the feminine. They should not be equal. They should always be working like this. If we are working in a practical manner, if we're getting things done, if we're getting on with stuff, then the dominant one in that moment should be the masculine. And when we're working our emotions, when we need to be intuiting, when we need to be looking at things a little bit sideways, a little bit laterally, then the feminine should be in play. Now, they should move quite nicely through, sometimes forward and back a little bit as well. Well, your masculine is stuck right in at your throat there, so you're going to feel frustrated quite a lot. You may find that you're having throat issues, upper chest issues, bronchial issues, and maybe soreness around the neck itself. This needs to be extended out from the body a little bit. I think that comes into play sometimes when we feel like we're losing a little bit of power in life, when we feel like maybe our body's not keeping up, or maybe people aren't listening to us, or we don't feel like we've got as much impact or input or connection as we once did. So it's probably not the best way to go from an attitude or belief system. The input you've got is all about you, really, and what you can and what you want to do, as opposed to pushing and driving yourself to prove that you're not losing ground physically. So I'd have a look at that if I was you from that perspective, relaxing the masculine aspect out here again, getting that balance between the two. If you don't feel like doing something, or if you feel too tired to do something, it's not giving in not to do that. Ask yourself, is there something I need to do to strengthen that part of my body? Or do I really need to be doing that at this stage? You know, do I need to be doing that? Would I have done that 20 years ago because I had to? Or if a man was there, or if somebody else was there, would I have got them to do it? You know, ask yourself those questions. Where am I doing that because I want to, and where am I doing it because I feel I've got to prove something? Cindy, you're second up, you see. One of the first things I see around you is there's this line between your solar plexus and your heart, and it moves a bit above your heart, but stops a little bit short of your throat. It means you do probably find it difficult to state your desires, to put your dreams out there verbally. That usually is going to come from feeling like you may be humiliated, you may be, I don't want to say disrespected, but that's always a possibility. It can also come from feeling as if you may have people just not take you seriously, I guess. And there's the combination of I'm going to do it and I want to do it is a little bit challenging for you. So I would suggest that it's easy for you to be talked out of things, or it's easy for you to let people override your desires. So because of that, I would suggest that when you've got something you really want, you would hold it quite close to yourself. Going into the energies of this time, it is a time to state what it is you want. If somebody's going to laugh at that, if they're going to put it down, if they're going to make it hard for you, then it's your job to say, well, that's actually not what I'm putting up with right now. That's not what I need from you if it's a close person close to you. If you're going to help me find the better way to do this, I will listen, and that would be great. But if you're just going to challenge me and make it hard for me, then maybe we don't need to discuss it anymore. But you do need to put it out there and know who your friends are, who your supporters are, and give yourself backing. Back yourself. If you can't back yourself, then, you know, you're going to find yourself with these thoughts and feelings and desires wandering around without finding the outlet. Gabriella, I immediately see your sacral region. Your creative is full in play. It's just fully moving. Boom, boom. It's like pulsing out there. It's got a great orange color, but it ducks down to quite a dark grey. So you can get very stubborn about what it is you're creating. You can get very driven towards it without necessarily being open to the best ways to go forward. Usually that will lead to frustration, and the one thing about this chakra when it's running in orange is it tends to lead to a bit of irritability and grumpiness, and then we don't like ourselves very much because we get a bit short with people here and there. Being creative is fabulously important for you, and really though it's not an island. It needs to be aligned with the heart. It really does in your case in particular. That sacral plexus needs to be aligned with the heart so that you can bring your creativity forward in a way that meets your desires, that determines what it is you want to go forward, and the best way. I keep coming back to the best way. Your solar plexus it's in the game, but you need your heart in it. You need your heart in it. No, I didn't, Becca. No, you're a bit further down the track yet. We go to Jennifer, Miss Jennifer. So I get your knee chakras, both of them, just going for it like this, one on, one off, one on, one off. So that means that you can be in two minds quite a little bit when it comes to making changes and creating changes around you. There's a lot of brightness around them, so you can be very optimistic about what is going on for you in your future, what you can get out of it, what you would like out of it, and all of that is sort of bowling on. So I'd suggest that you are thinking a lot about your direction, what you want and how you want to place yourself. It needs to align with your throat and your crown. Your crown is about time frames. It allows you to use your understanding of history, time frames, how long it takes to get something done, what it is you need to do at each stage, rather than having a vision and going, bing, there it is. and then having to work through a whole lot of stuff and feel like it's boring, it's mundane, it's taking too long, when really it's just taking the time it would take. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Okay, so that's what I think of when I'm looking at you. So if you can get your knees working together a little bit better, basically that means that what your intention is, what your desire is for change, meets the actions. That means you're happy to undertake whatever it is you need to do to create the changes in your life, even if they are challenging. So direction is very important for you at the moment, but also learning not to go into inner conflict. Awesome. Good girl, Gabriella. And Katie, as we move on to Katie, I see straight away we've got your solar plexus in play, but it's very pale green, very, very pale with a touch of yellow. I'd say that at the moment you're learning how to be creative. You're learning how to create for yourself and how to create in a way, Jennifer's having a laugh, create in a way that works for you. I think that you tend to have done things in the past that are what you think you should have done, what you were trained to do, what you were taught to do, and somehow you missed a little bit of fulfillment in that or feeling creative within that. So you're at a time of your life where this is going to come into play. Probably for the colour that I'm looking at, you are probably looking at a good 2 to 3 years that you're going to be working out the best way to be creative. That means undertaking courses and learnings to put out onto the planet those things that just are plain straight out good fun, things that you like. There's a lot of form around that, like landscape design or houses, something along those lines, but the creativity will come to the fore and you're just going to have fun doing that rather than feeling like you are in the grind, doing the job, getting on with it, that sort of stuff. Becky, this time we've got you going there. I've got a withdrawal into the heart center. It's like pulling back. You may notice a little bit of heartburn at present, pressure in your chest. You may find that it's heavy when you lie down. We need that to go out the front. Caution causes this, being scared of negative outcomes, being scared of things not going right, being scared of things just not happening, and withdrawing. You can't feel forward correctly because you're a bit scared of feeling things not going. You need to feel forward with your heart center. If you don't, then you will overthink things. You will get stuck in your head and you will go off at a tangent until you've talked yourself into a corner. And then you need to go out and find a way to bring yourself back out, which would have to be something to do with love and caring. That means you might grab a daughter and go for lunch, or grab a friend and have a chat to bring yourself back to square. But definitely keep this heart chakra going forward. You need it going forward, especially at this time. Leanne, I immediately have a lot of energy around the back of your throat. It's almost like whatever's in there has to come out, has to come out, has to come out. You may be trying to hold it a little bit, which gives you the humbug, going on. You may be concerned about how it comes out. There are things that you are dissatisfied with. There's a number of areas that you may have been learning or have learned, and you are finding that they're just not gelling. So just stop them, let them go, don't worry about them, and start working what you know to be right, what you know to be true within yourself, what you know represents who you are as a person, and then allow that to just flow. It's a very light yellow energy, and it ducks down at the top of your chest, so you may need to watch out for anything bronchial, and in particular any kind of tingling sensations, discomfort at the upper chest area. Bronchial areas are very important, very tiny little wee things, so it can feel like pins and needly kind of a feeling. You're welcome, Becky. And Megan, I've got this like buffy energy, like bang, straight out the front. Take me as I am or bugger off. There's nothing wrong with that, but it could soften up just a little bit because I'm feeling a challenge in making real, genuine connections for you, that you're feeling a little bit, not left out, but maybe a little bit alone, not lonely, but somewhere I'm not quite making the connections I would like. I'm not quite getting the depth that I would like. And while everybody should accept a person as they are, there are behaviours, there are niceties, there are things that we can do to encourage that to go a little bit deeper, which means we have to let them in and not always be putting ourselves out to them. Now, it's a full line, straight up and down. It's what the best way I would describe you, straight up and down, because this is like the whole line of chakras in the front of your body. It stands out in front of you like a little barrier, virtually. It's very bright, it's very clean, your intentions are great. And so I think that a little bit of defensiveness is probably in behind that. And if you can just relax that a little bit, let that flow a little bit. All of our chakras go like this. They move in, they move out, and this one might be active when this one isn't so active. That's how it's meant to be. Perhaps you've even been taught that they should all be the same. No, they should not. That's bad teaching. That is crazy teaching. We have physiological times when, especially for women, when your sacral region needs to be playing on the down low, and there's times when it needs to be more active, and that's the same for all of your chakras, and that it's appropriate for what's going on in your life. What do you need? You need to be malleable, you need to be flexible, you need to be able to use whatever tools you've got in your little toolbox to get the results you want or to go where you need to go. Joseph. Okay, my first thoughts with Joseph is I've got your solar plexus and your base chakra. Da-dong. These two are just layering out a little bit, so you're going to feel quite driven. That means you've got like ants in your pants kind of a thing going at the moment. Always wanting something more or wanting to do more than you're actually getting done, not because you're not getting plenty done, but there's just always something more to do. You've created this environment, or you're creating this environment where you've got always something more to do. Because that's working with your solar plexus, I would say that you're driven on a development bent, I guess. Whether you're creating a business, there's this whole drive of energy towards a goal through these chakras. They need to incorporate your throat so you know how to ask for help. Just thought I'd mention that because the throat's not playing in there, so you are very likely to be the person over the years who's, I might as well just do it myself. And you increase your workload, and at the moment you may be experiencing tiredness because of that. You may flag, you may be humming along and then suddenly flag, either getting sick as your body requires a rest, requires a change. So you're looking to bring the right elements together. We should all be using and able to use whatever we need to get the job done. Having a desire and having things go wrong is usually about not asking the right questions at the right time or asking for help from the right people when you need it. So something to really think about for you, Joseph. It's not that I don't actually get a sense of superiority around that. It's more of about a little bit of impatience and not necessarily liking to ask for help, perhaps, and always perhaps have been, I get the whole feeling of autonomy around you, that maybe for a very long time you've just done your own thing and haven't needed much help or have refused it. But I also get some failures that could have been avoided by asking the right person at the right time and giving yourself the right amount of energy break so that you can just charge on through, because I feel that you're that kind of a person. None of this is about changing a personality. It's about enhancing what it is you've got going on. There's no such thing as a blocked chakra. Chakras out of alignment just mean avoidance, by the way. If your heart chakra is zinging over to the right there, you're avoiding doing something, you're procrastinating, you're not following your desires. If it's zinging off to the left, you don't like how you feel. If the energy's in at the back, it means that it will come forward and become a sudden anger or suddenly volatile because you're not paying attention to your past. You already have a caution in place, a fear in place, you have something going on that you haven't paid attention to. So that's sort of like how they work on a very nominal level. You know, chakras are very in-depth, out there kind of things. I love working them. I love reading them. There's a layer on the outside. It's not a layer really. There's a rotation on the outside, a rotation on the inside. They go right through it, like looking at a funnel, but also like looking at a lot of sort of tinkly, sparkly energy, for want of a better way to put it. I'll put it a girly way for you. And then as it moves through the back, it expands out the back, and you've got these rotations out the back that will look the same, no matter whether you're looking from the back or the front, but they're actually going to be sort of the opposite. If you follow, the inside's going like that, the outside's going like this. From the inside out, it's obviously different from the outside in, so the general is that you're talking about the outside going anti-clockwise, the inside's going clockwise. You need two-way energy to have magnetic energy, just so as we're clear. Okay, magnetic energy is a two-way energy. It's polarized, it's balanced. That is balanced. The inside can be incorrect and the outside can be correct and vice versa. So you need to be able to look properly into a chakra to see what's actually going on there and not read the surface, which is the loudest bit of energy around the outside there, right through to the core. You can see things going on there. As the core runs up and down the center of the body, then it's more likely that if you have core issues that we're talking about right ingrained into the center of your body, it will affect your health. Danae, my immediate look at you is I've got a lot of pink running through your masculine chakra, which is kind of an interesting thing. And I can see the crown chakra and the third eye all sort of in line with this. So, you know, you're quite capable at the moment of seeing things as you would like to see them and miss the cues, sometimes missing details that you need to see. And so you may flag into full-on enthusiasm, action-packed, based on this is the optimism, and then you might find yourself having to backtrack and sort things out, or feeling like a bit of a fool, or feeling like you've made a poor choice, or feeling like everybody let you down, those kind of things, when in actual fact, because this masculine aspect is very practical, it needs to be looking very clearly at events and situations, so that when you engage it, you're engaging it in a proper manner for the right reasons. So it's not about looking ahead and intuiting things. I'm sure you do that, by the way, but I'm also sure that when you do that, you don't necessarily do that in the best possible way for you. So something to have a look at and think of there. I would be engaging the solar plexus so that you can have your gut feelings rather than your third eye intuitives. You need all of that. It's an energetic conversation we have at any one time with the whole world around us and other individuals. Anybody who's all in their third eye is going to miss part of that conversation. Anyone who is all in their solar plexus is going to miss part of that conversation. And when we have a heartfelt connection with somebody, you're going to miss both of those if you can't engage them all. Have a complete and whole. Teach yourself. Learn. Go learn. Engage those chakras, expand your system to have complete and whole conversations that are energetic with others. Sandra, the first thing I've got around you is interesting. We were just in the third eye, but I've got the third eye and out the back. So out the back, that would mean that you're second guessing a little bit what you are seeing, what you're visioning. So I'd say you're having visions. I don't doubt you're having a lot of dreams. If you're not remembering them, then I would probably encourage you starting to remember them. The energetic conversations or the communications that you're getting are quite profound, and they are teaching you. It's for you to learn, not necessarily raving on about the spiritual aspect of this world. It is there. There is a subtle connection and with others and with other things, and so we need to sometimes acknowledge that. So I am right now. With that, it needs to be drawn down and into your sacral plexus, into your sacral down here, so that it becomes part of your creativity, part of what you're putting out into the world. It needs to join in. So whether you're painting or writing, I'm not too sure, but I get you using your hands, and you need to incorporate that into what it is you're doing. And there's a bit of frustration around not having done that for yourself. So that means that you're not going to be enjoying your results, or they'll be missing something, whatever it is you do. It's just missing something. It's not quite got what I want in there. So it needs to have that element in there. That means you need to put a bit of yourself into what it is you have an ability to do. Best way I can put that. Elva, Rongamatane, sorry, I got corrected. Rongamatane, I've got a strong energy around your heart, and it's slipping down a little bit. That heart center is slipping down a little bit. It dips down. So it goes through the body in the right place. That's indisputable, but it dips down towards your solar plexus. So you very much can be changeable in what your intentions are. That means from one day to the next or 1 week to the next, you'll have a full-on intention for something, and then suddenly, and it's very sudden, suddenly it'll switch. Your heart's not in it. You lose heart. You lose, not faith, but you lose heart for a bit. And while you do, you might huddle in. You might find yourself hiding in a corner a little bit, just sort of licking your wounds, remembering old damage. So I do think you need to lift the heart energy and allow old hurts and old damage and old things to just sort of sweep away a little bit, so that they can take their place as wisdom in your life and not become something that creates limitation. I do get the idea of like everything in the package is kind of there, but then that you just lose heart. And I think that's a shame, because it's dipping down to the solar plexus. Then you'll become actually determined in holding that there, and that is determined to sit in the corner, determined not to bring the heart back into it, determined not to follow through with whatever it was you started. So it can mean quite a changeable thing for you. It's not a changing of mind, it's a changing of heart. So kind of profound, and something that I would look at with you, of being able to follow that heart through and damn the consequences to a certain extent. Because of the past, you're not necessarily creating the future that you would like, or even maybe the present that is as satisfying as you would like in that area. Now we have David. David, I've got very strongly around you. I've got there's a couple of little chakras on the outside of your ankles, and then we've got a hara line that runs up, right up from the ground, all the way up and in front, and it forms like a little triangle through the different levels of our energetic field. For you, I've got that a little bit skew with, and so that means structure and foundation is always feeling like maybe it's got cracks. It doesn't feel like I haven't got enough foundation. I've got to go back to beginnings. But actually, what you're doing is you're putting yourself back every time. It's like Groundhog Day, going back every time and reliving that process. You're not actually getting past that point, because you're not letting yourself. So, allow yourself to move past that point, break through that point. You don't need to just keep recycling this. I've got to go back to the beginning. I've got to restructure. There's not enough there. Yeah. So if you could have a look at that and bring those, that hara line, basically, and get those outside ankle chakras working for you correctly. They're what I envision as being fleet of feet. That's what I envision. Those chakras, when I see them, it reminds me of, who is it that had little wings on his feet? That's what they look like to me. There's these two little lights on the outside of people's ankles. Not everybody has them developed. You really do. But they're not functioning correctly with your foundations, with your grounding. And so there's this, I've got to go back. I haven't got enough foundation, and it is a little bit of a broken record. I don't mean that in an insulting way, but I can't put it any other way. Jennifer, Dorothy, am I missing something? How does one go about aligning the chakras? Well, the first thing you do is you need to understand what that means. What that means essentially is building the central light column, which will lead you towards having Kundalini experiences. All right, expansion experiences. That's my last reading, so thank you, everybody, for putting up with that. I hope you got what you wanted out of that. So firstly, you are expanding the central light column, which goes woo way up there and woo way down there, and it's what intersects all of your chakras except for the crowns, which there are three crowns, and the base, which is under your feet. It was Mercury, was it? Nice, thank you. And below your feet, your Earth Star. They are in your main line of your body, and all the rest go front to back, all right? What you're looking for to align that, if I've mentioned your knees, is you're looking to bring that connection to, you can run through a trance or meditation process to do this. You're looking to bring in every chakra. So you don't go, I've got to work with my knees and just go pumping energy into your knees. It doesn't work that way. In fact, that can cause more problems than healing problems, because there's this central light column. And if it can't function the amount of energy, it's like grabbing a hose and squeezing it, and then there's water build up in the middle and things just start to go a bit skew with. There are people who deliberately expand their third eyes that end up all trissy-la-la and frou-frou without any kind of idea of what real life's about. There are people who expand their crowns thinking this will make me more spiritual, but they're ungrounded, and so their information loses validity. They get wacko, sort of, really. You need to have everything in play and in balance. You need it polarity balanced, which means you need the quantum frequencies, which is very electric, and then you need the magnetic frequencies of the Earth. And in between that, we've got our own molecular energy, which is what I started with the DNA. So there's a number of ways, I guess, that you can go around this. Most of the old-fashioned ways I just don't really have much time for anymore. I started with them, and it seemed profound at the time, but then I had nothing going on, so everything seemed profound at the time. Now, as I look at it here, just by telling yourself that you need to start a balancing process will lead you to the right thing, and very often you start that. It's your system. If you're saying, oh, actually this doesn't feel so good. If you've got heart issues, if you've got indigestion issues, if you've got feminine issues, you work the whole system. You don't just put your hands on your belly and go, I'm going to heal that bit, because it's part of a whole. Your whole body is a single organism with a multitude of parts. You've got to determine whether your issue is genetic, if it's in the body. And so you can start with the chakras, but the chakras, if you do them right, will alter your physiology. If they don't, you haven't done it right. You're just playing around. So if I were to do a meditation, I would want to think of everything in balance. Yes, you would. I would always recommend that you can, if you can, envision every chakra. So you start below the feet. Okay, so you start below the feet, and there's an Earth Star, if you like. It's connected to the Earth. We are connected to the Earth. There's an energetic exchange. And then, of course, you allow that to come up through the soles of your feet, and just let it do it very slowly. If you're going to do this in 5 minutes, chances are it's going to skip about, because we're running energy anyway. And so if things are a little bit, yes, I have a free chakra meditation class. We might need to go and have a look and see if that's still functioning. WizIQ changed things. That's why I'm not running those classes anymore. I can do a free class, but I can't do a series of classes, and people can't buy individual classes anymore. You have to buy the whole thing. And so I'm trying to work out how to get those happening differently, and I may go in and I may need to record things in a different environment. So we'll look at that. But do have a look on my WizIQ. It's www.wiziq.com/energy therapies, and if you put in 12 chakras, it should still be there as a free class, and you can work through a multitude of chakra balancing exercises, if you like. The word for me is extension. Oops, go away. The word for me is expansion. It is an expansion that you are completing. So some of the chakras you'll be calming down quietly, some of them you'll be expanding, some of them you'll be aligning. So when a person says to me the word's balancing, when I say the word balancing, I am looking at the whole gamut. I don't think we're looking at, and in fact I know we're not looking at, get them all straight in a row and get them all punching out at the same level of intensity. We're not looking at that at all, and we need to allow for what time of month it is for a girl, which bits are doing what. So we want balance being the right chakra can come forward and be pronounced, the right pairing of chakras, the right group of chakras to meet any situation is balanced, to get optimal physical health, optimal longevity, optimal performance. All of these things are what I call balance. So it's much more complex than the idea of getting all your ducks in a row. I can and have leaned forward and run my hand down a person's chakras and hauled them into line, and they can go, ooh, that feels funny. I know tomorrow they'll be out again. And that's what we do because we're used to working our system in a particular way, if that makes sense. So that's our time for today. I hope everybody enjoyed that. If you want more information about the DNA reprogramming, get in touch with me. It is an awesome 5 hypnosis, 1.5 days session through Skype or in person. And what you're looking at is 3 to 6 months active change within your mentality, within your attitude, within your emotions, within your thoughts, within your behaviors. Usually noticeable within the first week or two. Certain things change within the first couple of days, and then it's as we meet life challenges that you recognize the differences and the changes and the movements. And that can be as much as losing weight, it can be down to relieving anxiety, feeling at peace. Many of the things that we don't realize are part of our nature, although we live it every day. So everybody have a great week, and we'll catch up with you, and don't be a part of the problem. Thanks. Bye.